We good? Yeah, that's loud. All right. My name is Natalie Quinn. I'm representing KART Planning Consultants, who are representing the client for this project. You guys have met us all before, so I'm just going to briefly go over the July 1st submission. I'll kind of give an overview of what we submitted and what was updated, and then we have the team of consultants here to go in a bit more detail about two of the kind of major items of this submission. So in the cover letter that we submit with every submission, we identify new materials submitted, as well as a bullet pointed list of changes. So I think in addition to the cover letter, we did responses to public comments, which we've been doing since the public hearing was opened. And so that's a cumulative response. We also did a response letter to consultant comments, which was in response to the most recent comment letter received from Lamont Engineering, the planning board's engineering consultant. There was an update to the EAF Part 1 and the appendices. The big updates to that were a well evaluation report, a stormwater pollution prevention plan, which Rodney and Andy will go over in a little bit more detail, and then also an agricultural data statement, which was just something we noticed in the town's site plan review law that was also required, so we included that within the EAF. In addition to that, there is a site plan set with revisions, and those revisions are mostly in response to the stormwater pollution prevention plan, the SWIP, as well as some of the comments from the board's engineering consultant. And then again, the full document of the SWIP was submitted. I will let you know, I think I won't go through the changes to the site plan in detail. Like I said, those are kind of enumerated in the letter, and they were mostly additions, additional detail, right? So breaking up one large sheet into 4 sheets so that you guys could review certain things at greater detail. There was one kind of change to the employee parking lot, where 18 spaces that were previously within that parking lot were relocated nearby. We had to make some changes to that based on the stormwater plan, which Rodney will talk about. And then besides that, additional details on both the kind of utility plans and the wastewater details as requested by the board's engineer were included. So that's the brief overview, and then I'm going to pass it off to Rodney to kind of give you an overview of the SWIP, which you've seen something similar to that before. It's been called the preliminary engineering report that you've kind of received the past few submissions. Now we've taken that to the full extent of the stormwater pollution prevention plan, which similar information to what you had in those previous engineering reports, but now it has kind of all the backup data mapping that is required when you submit a SWIP to DEC. So pass it on to Rod.
Thanks. I'll just stand. Rod Morrison, engineer for LRC Group. As Natalie said, what you've received is a lot thicker than it was before. I think our plan set's up to 64 pages. I believe that's the SWIP document sitting there in printed form. It's very large. Really, a lot of it is, again, as we've described, the movement to a lot of engineering detail for the project. So throughout the plan set, we've done the design grading, we've added road profiles as been asked. We've done plantings on our ponds, we've calculated the volumes, we've walked through the hydraulics, and basically the mathematics of the proposed design. That's all reflected in that huge volume of information. The vast majority of the SWIP is all this backup hydrologic calculations of all the design storms that the DEC has us look at. In general, though, in the first 7 or so pages of the SWIP, everything is summarized. It isn't different than we've been telling you before. We've added a lot of storage volume. We've provided, through landscape design and through the hydrology, added volume of storage to the site. Again, through the SWIP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, we have to design for 1 through 100-year storms. We have 20% more storage volume on property. We are discharging out of those existing culverts between 34 and 26% less peak storms. So that just supports everything we've been saying all along here. In the design plans, we haven't changed the locations of any of this here. Again, as alluded to by Natalie, we've added the grading design for the site, and so on. So light in that set, it's a lot of detail, lighting plans, landscape plans. We did mention that the parking lot area was moved away from the next door property. This is actually the correct plan. That allowed us to do additional landscaping around the corner here and ensure that any of the drainage, which appears to want to settle in this area presently, we can get it out and bring it into our system. So we accommodated, again, stepping back maybe a month, the DEC had come out, they had indicated they wanted us to not really touch some of these streams, which we're bridging them with culverts, box culverts. We're creating actual bridge crossings down here near the existing site, the existing development area. So it's progressive, and it's 4 or 5 times, again, like I said, the engineering detail that we had previously. I think Andy, let you talk a little bit about what you've done with water and sewer and an update.
Thank you. Alvin from the Associates. Since the last time we were here, we have conducted 72-hour pump test. Okay. Sorry, I want to blast you away. So since last time we conducted a 72-hour pump test for DOH regulations for well number 4, which we got a stabilized flow rate of 20 gallons per minute, which was significant. And just as a point of reference, well number 4 is down in this area here. Well number 4 is here, just uphill of the large pond on the property, and in proximity to well number 5 and well number 1, which was an existing well that had purported to have a large well yield, but recently when it was tested, it was a little bit lower. We think that there might be something going on with that well, but based on this information and the well drillers' information they provided for well 5, we don't have a full well test for that, but the way the well drilled for well 5 and well 4, they were pretty much identical, and the water that they were getting out of the well while they were drilling was equal to, if not more than what was well 4. However, we haven't done the 72-hour test on well 5 to document it, but it's a high probability that it'll be equal, and that's in our report we're saying anticipating that it's 20 gallons a minute. So total for the whole, all the wells on site right now, total to, potential 66 gallons a minute, which is double what we would need. And then of course with our largest well out of service based on DOH regulations, that brings us down to like 46 gallons a minute, which is yet still another 10 plus gallons a minute more than what we need. So at this point, demonstrated that there is a significant amount of water available to us on the site. More studying needs to be done. We are approaching some people that are in a large radius outside, a 1 mile distance from the site, to do some monitoring out that far based on comments and responses that we've got.
What was that last thing you said, Andy?
Yeah, we can't hear you. Speak up.
Yeah, so just a quick summary, because so this well map was included at the end of the report, and I just want to kind of go through, we did try and color coordinate, but so total of 8 wells on site, right? There was 4 previously existing wells, those are called A through C, and 1. The 1 was originally used for irrigation, and A through C were used for the various kind of residences and the restaurant use. And so now in total, 4 additional wells on site. Well 3, which is noted in yellow on the site plan, was such a low yield after drilling that well that we will not be utilizing. We don't intend to utilize that one. So that will be it hasn't been set up as a full well, but that will be decommissioned. That hole will be filled and be decommissioned as required. But I think what we're looking at is four and five are kind of the new additional wells that I think are showing high yields on site that really kind of, to Andy's point, get us to those numbers that we needed to supply the property. And then we are in conversation with DEC regularly about the monitoring that we're already doing around the site with adjacent properties, and potential voluntary expansion of that where we can. So we did send out notices to 3 properties that have similar well depths to the newest wells on site. Right, the newest wells are, I think it's 370. The 2 new wells are
475.
and 605, 475 and 605, right, which are deeper than some of the other wells on site. Well 1 is pretty deep as well as one of the neighboring wells on the Mossman's property. But we did kind of go further out looking at DEC data, the available data that we had to see kind of where well depths were, and chose one to the north, the east, and the south of the site to monitor those. We put out the solicitations. We have not, as of today, heard back from any of those to enter. Again, it's a fully voluntary program about whether you want to have your well monitored or not. And then we are discussing ways of expanding the monitoring wells even further when we get to the point of testing well 5, which right now is delayed just because we have to wait for the well drillers. It's a busy season and their schedules are booked, so it's looking like the earliest we can get them back out to do testing on well 5 is August, end of July or beginning of August. Well, it hasn't been a fully operational well. It was one of the new holes drilled on site, but we will not be developing that as a well, so it will be decommissioned. And then potentially some of the existing wells, which we've said previously, those are 4 existing wells. Some of those may be decommissioned as well, which would have to go through the protocols of DOH as well as DEC. So I think that's our update of new information provided. So we have consultants up here happy to answer any questions from board members.
Noah?
As far as the wells go and everything, you're gonna have Department of Health's gonna be monitoring the wells? Are they going to regulate the wells? They've actually.
We can't hear you.
Speak up.
Have you talked to the Department of Health and you found out that you have enough water out of those 3 wells for this project without running low on water, things like that?
Yes, this would be a regulated public water supply. So it would, before anything was commissioned, the health department would review all design drawings and approve the system.
So have they done that?
They have not done that yet. No,
Okay, so you don't have the department, you're not at the stage where you're actually gonna get it approved yet?
correct. We just got wells drilled, so we're in the process.
And you have the flow tests and all that ready, or no yet?
Yeah, so I just want to say we are in communication with DOH, right? So every time we're going to drill a new well, we have them evaluate the location of it before we have the team out there. So there is the already communication, but the official permits have not been started yet. And yes, we're getting yield tests, well completion reports on.
Reserve and all that.
Yes, correct.
Rich, any questions?
When does DEC come in?
So DEC is already involved regulating our stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Yes, I just wanted to add, because it really comes with the gentleman's comment here. The DEC is very involved in everything we're doing with well drilling. We've gone over this plan with them. We've agreed that, everything that you see here, we're giving them. They have this exact same PDF and information. They have the information on where we're monitoring wells, where we're looking to potentially monitor new wells. So they're completely current. So they're jointly involved, let's say, with the Department of Health, where the Department of Health will, drilling. The DEC is taking a very keen interest in how much water the wells will produce. Ultimately, it gets compared to how big the project is proposed for. And they will have a more expansive testing program as we go on. They've made that clear. So it's not just one well at a time. We'll have to go through a whole series of hoops, appropriate ones, to make sure we have the right water supply for the project and it's sustained. So we're in constant communication with both agencies.
And they're also the stormwater and the discharge, right? Is what they-
Yes, of course. DEC also regulates the discharge and the design of the sewer treatment plant. We're doing all that. And obviously, in this case, they would review and approve the SWIP through their permit process. So 3 or 4 permits at DEC, 1 at State Department of Health, all involved.
We did have some, we did finally get through the extensive review of your SWIP. We do have some comments that we want to check in with you. Maybe it's an interpretation. I'm not sure if it's some design elements, but we'll contact you directly and go over some of our comments.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to do that. Yeah.
And likewise, some of the stormwater or the sanitary wastewater discharges and the requirements that DEC is looking to invoke for the discharge at the higher elevation and what it will assimilate when it gets to the point where it does leave the property. And has there been a decommissioning discussion yet on the septic system that's across the street?
We've known from the beginning we have to do that.
We're going
Yes.
to do that.
Yes.
Oh,
We are going to do
Are you
that.
going
Yes.
to decommission it, or other than just abandon it in place?
It hasn't been a conversation with the ownership about how to take that apart.
Does that owner want to assume that property or that septic system for their use, if anything?
Is our owner?
No, the owner of the property, where it's.
We simply don't know if there's any other conversation about it. We know that for our project, that doesn't fit anything that we would need, that we would keep in place.
That's, and we have some other comments that we went through, the environmental assessment that you did address with your follow-up, so we'll be looking at that as well.
So I have a question about the sewage treatment, septic system, whatever you want to call it. The proposed one. So it's going to discharge towards the top of the project. If that system were to fail, how long would it take for there, to be leakage? If the town of Taxgill's fails, it goes, I believe, into Taxgill Creek or whatever, it's usually no drinking water in Taxgill, and a whole issue for a day or two or whatever. And Cairo's, I think, does the same thing, goes into a creek somewhere, and can cause similar issues. Is there a holding tank, or how long would it take if there was a similar issue with this type of facility for that to get off the property, and are there some preventative measures to prevent, say that happens for 2 days, then we just shut down, can't use it, or can you go through that?
Sure. The wastewater treatment plant has the multiple processes that the plant goes through is in stages, and a lot of those stages are controlled by pumps. And those pumps are monitored as well as some of the discharge parameters. And some of those have alarms that will go off. So if there's exceedance or a chlorine injection or something like that, if it's functioning properly, or the UV light disinfection, I should say, that goes off, there's an alarm that immediately will notify people, and then systems will be shut off. And so there's a lot of safeguards as far as the final discharge will be a pumped discharge, it's not by gravity. And so that system will be safeguarded in that any system breakdown will essentially shut off pumps to the discharge, so we won't get into the environment from there. And there's a surge tank which can hold a certain amount of water. So it's a matter of, the plant shuts down, not a matter of nobody can utilize their plumbing in the very short term. So there's an amount of time that they'll have to still people continue operating and fix whatever's going wrong with the plant. So if there was a discharge or some reason that was an exceedance of the permit limits of some sort, it would go to the pond and then would come down the channel into the other pond. So it would take the residence time between discharge to leaving the property is likely on the order of like 24 hours. So even with the plant being monitored on a daily basis, and these things don't happen generally like overnight. If there's an exceedance of a parameter, that generally happens over, it takes a while. They'll see the rise in whatever parameter is an issue. The only thing that could possibly happen is if the UV light that's doing the final disinfection were to completely shut off. In that case, there would be an alarm, and that would cause a cascade of safeties that would stop the discharge of the wastewater. I hope that answers your question.
One more thing to add, and so I think to Andy's point, because of the capacity of the system, there is a full-time operator that we are required to have. So I think there's someone who is daily monitoring this, which is important. And I think the other thing that gets to Andy's point about it taking up to 24 hours to get off the site is we did voluntarily, just reminding the board, move the discharge site further into the site, right? So it's up at the top, right next to the main lodge, is where the main discharge will happen. So to Andy's point, it'll be kind of captured within the site at first, which I think gives us additional time to recognize and address, in addition to all the safety protocols that are already put on a system like this.
Thank you. So you said that my understanding is there's basically septic tanks at the various sites that then get pumped to the treatment facility. If the treatment facility's down, people are still using their toilets, do we have like a 2-day, a 3, how long is the period before those septic tanks are then full and toilets are not operational? So like, can the site not be operational for a day or 2 days or 12 hours?
It would kind of depend on where the plant is at the time that it will shut down, but it's going to be like between 12 and 24 hours. Of course, that would not prevent, if there was a complete shutdown of the system, that wouldn't prevent the owner from hiring, say, a septic hauler to just come and pump that surge tank out and bring that to, say, Catskill wastewater treatment plant or something like that. So we've had systems where they've been completely pumped over time, say a couple of weeks at a time, in order to maintain the plant, to take it apart, put it back together, whatever was broken with it, that kind of thing. So there can be provisions to continue the operation of the hotel and all the residences as the plant would need to be taken offline for some particular reason. But not that happens on a regular basis. I was involved in a plant that was installed 20 years ago, and to this day it has never had to be taken offline, never stopped pumping, and has never had any exceedance. Same kind of technology. Smaller plant, same technology, same kind of setup.
I haven't seen your plans for the septic system or the wastewater treatment system yet. I don't know how far along you are with the design and discussions and submittals with DEC and DOH, but typically you have a degree of redundancy designed in the plant, so you can take certain components and cells out of service to do routine maintenance and repairs and upgrades and so on. So
Correct.
they usually have at least one component of a daily functional system that is set aside and is waiting if it ever needs to be activated, while then one component or the cell will be then transferred to that section, so they can take a piece of the plant out of service and still keep the treatment processes going.
Right, everything that's pumped will have at least 2 pumps. So if one pump goes down, the other pump takes over. Same with the filters.
That's just a design requirement that they do have to include at least 50% redundancy in the plant to process your wastewater.
Including backup generator.
Yes.
There'll be a contingency plan in the things from DEC is what you're saying.
What?
Contingency plan will be required by DEC. What you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, before I call up the first person, I just want to say a couple of words. We received an email about a petition that was submitted and posted, and there were some names missing. I have had them looking into it. It was my understanding that the entire thing was posted up there, and that is working on being rectified as to where the missing names are. So that's in the works, just so everybody is aware. And then, similar to prior months, we're asking everybody to try to restrict new comments to new comments and not repeat yourself, so that everybody has an opportunity to be heard. And speakers, as they were last month, are restricted to 3 minutes in time, so we can get through everybody in a timely manner. All right, the first person, Frank Algazine.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna have to speak. That microphone is gonna be.
There's a mic right there.
I'm mainly gonna be addressing aspects of the update of the fiscal analysis that was originally planned in April, or prepared and submitted in April. And I subsequently addressed that analysis at the May meeting and gave an overwhelming evidence that it was, as I stated then, I'll state again now, sadly it was garbage. The new information provided is included in a report by CARP dated July 1st, 2024, and centers around a similar resort as being proposed here. It is located in the town of Gardner, in Ulster County, and known as Wildflower Farms. I did research on this same resort back in May. My research was done online, and I personally spoke to other directors of real property tax, tourism, economic development, IDA, tax collectors, assessors, and others. One public official was very familiar with the Wildflower project. I was told the proposal took 7 years to be approved, and what may have helped in that approval was that someone with ties to Gardner area was involved who may have been able to influence the approval. I was also told that projects like these, especially when sited in an area such as Round Top and a small community, are extractive, which means that they will take more out of the area in which they site than the area will benefit. I prepared a handout for the June Planning Board meeting, but didn't present it. Why? Because all of that research concluded that Wildflower Farms was paying minimal property, school, and fire taxes. All my presentation of facts would have accomplished was to give the owners of the proposed Round Top Resort all of the ammunition they needed to contest and litigate an assessment in the town of Cairo. I think now may be a good time to take a look at my handout. You are about to see what CARC should be revealing to the planning board, but I assume chose not to. CARC in their latest report make reference back to their April fiscal analysis, wherein they cite annual tax revenue for their Round Top project to be $5,497,500. It's $5 million, $5.5 million. Excuse me?
You've got a minute left.
What I would ask is that CARC represents the Round Top Resort development. I consider myself representing, as a consultant, unpaid, the Round Top group. I think I should be afforded the same amount of time that CARC has had. If you don't want to hear what I have to say,
I encourage you to hand in your handout so we can reference to it afterwards.
you obviously don't want to hear what I have to say. I have all new information, which is
I
what...
do want to hear, and I would actually like to be able to read it after the board meeting so we can look back to it. So if you would hand in the type out that you have there, it would be very useful.
Yeah, we want to hear it.
You want me to hand...
Keep going.
I can see my time to Frank.
You're really not serious.
I seriously would like to.
I plan on handing that out. I plan on going over it. And the only thing that I will say publicly, if you cut me off, you're going to be reading some things in the paper. And I will not be as kind there as I will be here. So what do you want me to do? I'll listen to you.
Let him speak.
Go ahead, Frank.
Frank, you got 6 more minutes. They conceded their time to you.
No one should have to concede their time.
Public forum, why can't...
This report does you a huge favor.
I'd like to see
Frank, we all gave you
Let's hear it.
time.
He said go ahead.
Copies here.
Can you tell us just the takeaways then?
Yeah, give us the gist of it.
Just, you can, whatever you want. So do you want me to continue, or do you want to read about it as a letter to the editor in the
No, we
papers?
want to hear it.
As I said about a minute ago, I said to continue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Wildflower's first year annual tax was $138,000. CARC is telling us the Round Top project is going to be paying $5.5 million. Very quickly on the handout. The first page simply is a picture of what you can pull offline about Wildflower Farms. Shows the pictures, it gives resort information, and I put one copy there of a page that indicates where you can go online and make reservations. If you turn the page over, you'll see a site map where the Wildflower Farms is in Ulster County. If you look in the upper right-hand corner, you will actually see a page of the official 2023 final assessment roll of the town of Gardner. The third parcel there, under the last set of asterisks, is for Wildflower. Wildflower has been given a full market value of $12,800,000. The fiscal report done by Weitzman indicates the Round Top project will be worth $330 million. If you look, my understanding, I believe there's going to be condominiums with this project. There's summary of condominium valuation, which basically summarizes that condominiums are restricted on how much they can be assessed. They have to be assessed as a whole, as an apartment complex. The Wildflower Farms received a full 50% business tax exemption. And like I said before, the annual tax that Wildflower paid was $130,000. Just taking and breaking out the units in Wildflower and then attributing them to the numbers in the Round Top proposed resort, the total first year tax estimate for the Round Top project, based on the same circumstances as CART used Wildflower for a comparable, which I'm about to show, the Round Top project first year would be paying $200,000, I'm rounding numbers, the first year. They cite in their fiscal report that they're going to be paying $5.5 million. One other quick observation is that the developer's report attempts to mitigate the impact that the resort will have on town roads by stating it will be paying $197,249 in annual net revenue to the town of Cairo. I couldn't find that amount in the report. I may have missed it. But the truth of this matter is that any additional costs incurred by the town due to added roadway improvement and maintenance will be added to the highway portion of the town amount to be raised by taxes and paid by every property taxpayer in the entire town. Moving to a new aspect now, which is something that was in the new fiscal analysis for this project, and this creates some serious concerns, and they're new, concerning conflicts of interest by individuals on this board. Moving into the different aspect now, I'm going to read portions of the latest submittal by CARC that addresses the impact that the new Round Top Resort will have on property values. It reads, upon completion and opening Wildflower Farms in 2022, the entire town of Gardner's full value increased 25%. While this approximate 25% increase in the town of Gardner's total property full value cannot be directly attributed to the 65-unit development, our review of other potential developments in Gardner in 22 did not identify any projects that could have contributed to this sizable increase. Although it is unlikely that the entire increase is due to the resort, it is likely that surrounding property values increased as an accelerated rate due to Wildflower Farm development. This sets precedent. I'm reading verbatim from their report. That large increases, such as the one anticipated in the town of Cairo with the Blackhead Mountain development, can occur over a short period. This market valuation analysis of Wildflower Farms development, a similar hospitality project, demonstrates that similar developments can significantly impact value. The substantial increase in Gardner's full value following the completion of Wildflower Farms indicates that well-managed hospitality projects can drive considerable overall value of the local area. Based on Weitzman Associates' extensive experience underwriting similar properties, it is their expectation that similar to Wildflower Farms, the Blackhead Mountain Lodge will have comparative positive impacts on the municipality, contributing to increased value. End of reading. Okay, in my opinion, this conclusion, which is brand new, we're talking about it here for the first time tonight, based upon my research and knowledge, is simply not true. A major increase in full value of towns in upstate New York particularly in the lower Hudson Valley in 2022, was the result of the overwhelming demand for properties due to COVID and the extremely high prices buyers were paying in the years leading up to 2022. These high prices caused New York State Department of Taxation and Finance calculations of town equalization rates to drop, leading to big jumps in the calculations of total full valuation of towns. To even imply that Wildflower had any part in this total increase of the town with their comparative puny little full value and economic influence is a joke. In the year that CARC report cites Gardner's full value jumped 25%, I did a quick analysis of the town of Cairo, and it appears that for the same reason of COVID, its influence, the town of Cairo jumped 20%. High prices being paid and low inventories. Taking into consideration the following statement in CARC's latest submittal, it reads, based on Weissman Associates' extensive experience underwriting similar properties, it is their expectation that similar to Wildflower Farms, the Blackhead Mountain Lodge will have a comparable positive effect contributing to increased value. End of statement. Here is where I have to address members of the planning board. I do not claim to be an expert in conflicts of interest. However, as the former director of real property tax for Greene County, I received training as well as taught town boards and boards of assessment review on conflicts of interest. There was a saying that was always a part of any discussion pertaining to conflicts of interest. It was, if it smells bad, you should publicly disclose your conflict, and it would be best to recuse yourself from any official discussions and activity and take a seat in the audience. I recall being planning, this is a step back in time. I was on the first original planning board and was involved with planning boards with Bob Phoenix. This is just a little recount of my experience with Bob Phoenix. I recall being on planning board meetings years ago where the chairman at that time, Bob Phoenix, would have projects before the board. Bob would immediately disclose any interest he had, recuse himself, get up from the table, tell the remaining planning board members to let him know when they are finished reviewing the project, he would leave the room. He returned after all discussions and approvals were decided upon. I highly respected Bob for his integrity in these interests. There are actual or real conflicts of interest arise where financial or other considerations compromise an individual's objectivity or ability to perform his or her responsibilities. Perceived or potential conflicts of interest exist where a board member or their family or friends has financial interests or relationships with another individual, which may result in his activities on the board appearing to be biased by that interest or relationship. The question that board members have to ask themselves is, do I have a conflict of interest, actual, real, perceived, or potential? Will I financially benefit in any possible way? Do I have family or friends that may benefit in some way? Do I consider the former Blackhead Mountain Lodge owners who may or may not have interests in the approval of this project my friends? If the answer to any of these questions by any board member is yes, then I would encourage you to publicly disclose that interest, recuse yourself, and take a seat in the audience. Anytime this proposal is held, this issue is discussed. Here are some questions and some points that I'm going to make just as a help. Consider it a help. I'm not the enemy here. I helped CARC great tonight. I mean, they should be able to walk in this town and build that thing and pay no taxes. You know, you're welcome. I mean, but it's the law, you're entitled to it. The questions are not intended to be accusatory, and I am not expecting answers. Everyone in this room must keep in mind that prior to CARC's latest submittal on July 1st, increased property values were merely speculation. We heard over and over again, some people thought these people thought their market values were going down. These people said, not all of you, were trying to tell us that they were going to go up. According to the latest Weitzman report, they're the professionals. We're going to go with what they say. Okay, so in the past, increased property values were merely speculation. That is no longer the case based upon the findings and expectations of their consultant, Weissman Associates. Property values in the Round Top vicinity will increase of 25%. Certain board members here, as Weissman Associate has indicated, can expect market values and financial gain. Again, I'm nobody's enemy here, and you're welcome to talk to me afterwards. First, Rich Lorenz. We have known each other a long time. You do not appear to own any properties in the Round Top vicinity. However, after your retirement, I recall you worked for the former Blackhead Mountain Lodge, and to this day consider yourself a friend of the former owners who may or may not have an interest in this project. There may be nothing to this. However, you need to ask yourself, am I in any way feeling compromised in a potential vote that I may have as an alternate member? You may also want to check the status of your alternate appointment as to whether you are authorized for any and all proceedings of this board. Some alternate members are restricted in participation only after another member recuses themselves after disclosing a conflict of interest. There should be a town local ordinance that addresses alternate positions for you. And again, this is a help to you. We had a conversation the other day. Be safe with what you do. Kevin Hicks. We don't know each other. However, I observed some of your postings on social media. You have a very impressive record of military service, and I commend and thank you for that. I also saw that you are an avid golfer and have made favorable comments about the former Blackhead Mountain Lodge, Country Club, and Pub. All I ask is that you give thought to any potential conflict of interest that you may have and do what is appropriate in that regard.
I will admit I had a golf lesson from Peter Mossman in 2017, I believe. And I drank at the bar after and before many rounds of golf. As far as I know, he sold the property.
Thank you.
I golfed with him in February or March of this year.
The only thing I would add is this is an extremely controversial project. It is something that could very well impact the town of Cairo, and that you just protect yourself.
I will happily recuse myself if the town would like me to do so.
Do what's right in your heart and mind. Beth Hansen. Okay, I don't know you, but you act like you don't like me. Okay, good. Okay. The town of Cairo's tax records indicate that you own and are assessed in the impacted Round Top vicinity of this project.
Been there since 1956.
I can't hear you.
I said I've been there since 1956.
Got you beat by a few years. But that's a great place. Used to fish it in the woods. Let's see, the CARC study suggests, the CARC study suggests that your home, currently listed at a full value of $220,000, can be expected to benefit by an upwards appreciation in value of 25%, or $55,000 if this project is approved. Social media, including Facebook, it's amazing what you can learn on social media. You gotta be really careful. Nothing I found, great little stuff I saw. Yes. Let's see, where am I? Okay. Social media, including Facebook, indicates that you have a significant number of friends that may benefit as well. You should strongly consider recusing yourself. Joe?
Sure.
Okay. The CARC, the newest version of the CARC fiscal analysis indicates that property values will increase by 25%. You are a property owner in the vicinity of what is considered that area, and your vote to approve this project is a vote to increase the value of your home by $50,000. And also that vote influences the values of many of your friends that you have in Round Top as well. I will talk to you more about this. I would suggest if you have any concerns, talk to the town attorney. Okay, let me move on. Okay. Joe, I think that what I just stated about Beth's situation and need for recusal pertains to you as well, but in a more significant way. You own a home, as do many of your relatives and friends, in the area that CARC has indicated will benefit upwards of 25% increase in market monetary value if the resort is approved. The town of Cairo tax rates indicate that tax records indicate that your home has a full value of $405,000. This project, if approved, according to the CARC report, is expected to increase your home by a value of $101,000. Wouldn't you think that continuing in these proceedings and not recusing yourself takes on a perception of smelling bad? Isn't your situation perceived or potential conflict of interest? If you further consider the financial benefits to your neighboring relatives, friends, and businesses, that makes this whole issue something that you should really give some serious thought about. Ed Forrester, Alan Viverka, two gents who live and own homes outside of the suggested windfall area of the increased property values. I do not believe that you should allow this project to go forward without a full environmental impact study, and here's why. It has been stated that 13 million gallons of treated sewage effluent will be discharged into a tributary of the Shingle and flow down through the hamlets of Round Top, Pearling, and Cairo, passing through the Cairo Town Park and watershed of the town's municipal water supply. 13 million is a big number. So let me put it into perspective, and your engineers are welcome to try and confirm this. There are 22 acres within the walking path at the town park. 13 million gallons of treated sewage effluent would submerge that 22 acres 2 feet deep. I know it won't happen all at once, but that should be a pretty concerning issue for everyone in the Cairo Water District. I find it ironic that we have signs appearing around town that state "Save Cairo Business," and at the same time folks are promoting discharge of wastewater to the water source for the main Cairo Business District without the benefit of a full environmental assessment impact on this project. I don't see how you could vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Frank, if you would be agreeable, can we have the type up of your speech so we have it correctly in the minutes?
I will email it to you.
Thank you.
I only have one copy.
Good evening. I'm Richard Lorenz. I was born and raised in Round Top. I stayed there until I was old enough to join the military. I served 6 years in the military. Come back to Cairo, got married, had 3 children, all went to school in Cairo. After my employment in 2020, I retired. And I worked for the Mossmans mowing grass for a couple of years, just to fill in some time that I had. I also run. After the military, I get back to Cairo and I run for the town board. I served on the Cairo town board as a councilman for 19 years. I served as Cairo legislator representing Cairo and Catskill for 3 years. If anybody, I love Round Top. I was born and raised there. I played there as a kid. If anybody thinks it's a conflict of interest for me to serve on this board, speak up now besides Frank. And I commend all the people who serve in Cairo, people on the planning board, the people on the town board, and the people on the zoning committee. They're paid pittance to do a job. They came to town boards and they were active and they cared about Cairo. That's all I got to say.
CJ? If it's okay, I'd like to give, since time's an issue, I'd like to give mine to Jen.
Understood. Jen? Makes two of us. We just want to grab that one here. Thank you.
Hi, I'll try to keep it shorter. I just want to run through some new things from the July submission. I have one request, which is, I'll explain it, but I'm wondering if this planning board would be willing to say that they will, ultimately when you're making a decision about approving this project or not. I think with what we've heard tonight from the consultants that, approval should be contingent on them achieving all of their permits. There are so many permits and none of the questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, every approval the board does, and this approval included, is contingent on them achieving their DOH, DEC, and all other necessary permits before they can move forward. So that will apply here as well.
No, I mean, is it possible that you could approve with contingencies? I'm asking if the planning board will hold off on making a decision until all of the approved permits are in hand.
I can't tell you if we're ruling one way or another or when we're going to. I just don't have, we're in the
just
midst
a
of a
suggestion.
deep, we're in the midst of a deep review, so I can't answer that question at this time.
I just think that would be the most comprehensive way to see whether or not this is viable.
Yeah.
I have one more question for this planning board, and I sincerely believe that all of you really want to protect the community. I really do. I'm wondering, because this project is so unprecedented in not just for Cairo, but Greene County and really the whole region at large. And when I say unprecedented, I mean the only resort with a similar number of bedrooms that serves a wealthy clientele. We talked about Wildflower, but the Mohawk Mountain House also has 286 guest rooms. But the difference is we're talking about a resort owned 150 years by a local family with commitments for conservation and other things to their community. This resort will be owned by hedge funders and other institutional investors who, by law, have to be beholden to their shareholders. So what Frank is talking about and what is they are going to extract as much as possible and pay as little as possible. So when I say unprecedented, I mean it's as big as the biggest resorts we have in the Catskills, but under a completely different financial arrangement. And so my question is, has this planning board, when was the last time you declared a pause deck on super and went through a full scoping process?
Not since I've been on the board.
Have any of you been through scoping?
Truthfully, I don't think I have ever declared before I was on the board. I've been on the board about 10 years.
So no one. Okay. And do you recall ever pause decking something and going through an EIS and scoping?
Positive declaration for seeker.
No, we didn't have, they didn't come up to that extent.
Okay. I was just curious because I understand that that process, you know, it's a whole extra step, but it's a critical one. But my understanding is that it also opens up a tremendous amount of resources for all of you and also takes us out of this very stressful and exhausting process where we're kind of having like an abbreviated, halfway, disorganized review process, and it sounds like declaring a pause deck and getting an actual formula in place opens up such a better pathway for you, for the public, and ultimately for the consultants. And I really hope that that is something that we can do as soon as possible, because I think it'll end a lot of this craziness that we've been all feeling. I'm going to talk about a couple of quick things now about the July submission that I think emphasize why we need scoping and a positive declaration.
The last big project that came before the town was the development down where the bank is now, across from the bank, where the dollar store is. And the lead agency, the town, took the lead agency, not the planning board.
And you don't remember if there was an environmental impact statement?
There was a lot of controversy, and I don't know what they voted on first.
An environmental impact statement is a way to avoid controversy because it allows all of these things to be done by the book in a way that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And so I think yes, it's a high degree of work, but the past 6 months have been a high degree of work. And I know you all aren't paid very much, but I'm paid nothing. And I have done a tremendous amount of earnest work to bring as much of my skills and expertise as possible. And I would love for this to be put in the hands of a different process that we can all feel more confident about. So here's some more reasons why I think we need that. The traffic report. I'm sorry to keep going on the traffic report, but I've looked very closely into it. I've read all the comments, and I have a letter that I wrote that I detailed that I'll be sending to all of you and the town and all the contacts at the DEC and beyond, anyone who's raised issues with the traffic report. But I have serious concerns about the methodology and even the professional integrity of how that report was put together and how it has been treated through this process. Doug, there was a question that you brought up in your your June questions, and you said that the planning board needs to look more closely at the report, and you said that they need to look at the traffic versus current levels, and you had current levels in bold and underlined. And I'm wondering if you could help me understand what current levels means technically, like current levels of traffic volume.
Daily counts, where they have some count data from, was it April?
They did a traffic study in April. So you're referring to that traffic study where we have empirical evidence. So my understanding of the traffic study and the reason why I kept asking for an updated number of the increase in traffic is because, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but they did that traffic study but then ignored the data that they received from it. It's not in their analysis. My understanding is you did your LOS calculations, your level of service, which is an inadequate metric for determining traffic increases. But they did that analysis based on this former use data. Former use is their estimates of the former Blackhead Mountain Lodge. Now, those estimates are already too high. They admitted in the last meeting that they were too high, but they're also too high because they bumped up the data with false traffic. They included data for 36 townhouses that have never existed, like do not exist, have not existed, and would not be able to exist in the future unless someone applied for a new special use permit. So they cannot be using that data. And when I ran the Institute of Traffic Engineers data that they used in their report, I believe that the traffic from those townhouses accounted for something like 265 daily trips. So it's not an insignificant number. I find that to be a level of misconduct, and I do not think that it has not been addressed, and it's still being used in the data. None of that has been removed. Now, at the last meeting, a guy from Creighton Manning said that, Joe, you had asked him a question, and he said, what's important is that we did not use that former use data in our analysis. We do not take credit for it. I don't know if any of the consultants here can explain to me what we don't take credit for that data means. Because in the report, you are absolutely using that data. In fact, it's the backbone of your analysis. So you need to redo your traffic report, you need to redo your LOS assessment, you need to redo the former use estimates and take those 36 townhouses that do not exist and have never existed out of your data. We know that your consultants went on site, they kind of knowingly state in the report that the townhouses don't exist. So that's the kind of manipulating data that in my industry it's like, yeah, it's not a rounding error, that's like poor study design and cherry picking. And to Doug's comment about we need to look at the difference between current levels of traffic and what the traffic would be if this resort gets built. So in their preliminary assessment, they said 7%. Now, you'll see this in my letter, so I won't go into it. I think it was completely irresponsible of them to present that number at the first public hearing. There were, what, 200 people in this room? That number got repeated in at least 4 different newspapers and media outlets, and it has done early and irreparable harm to public understanding of the size and scope of this project. The data that they're giving now, they're saying the difference between the former use of Blackhead Mountain Lodge, future use will be, but traffic will increase not by 7%, but by 100 to 150%. But that's not based on the current levels of traffic that Doug is referring to. So I did the math, and you will see it detailed in the letter. When they gave a 7% estimate, they were off by 2 orders of magnitude. That's logarithmic scale. Traffic is going to increase on Blackhead Mountain Road by over 700%. On Bald Hill Road, it's over 1,000%. So the concern here is that it is clear to me that they are trying to obfuscate and hide those levels, and providing you and pivoting to this different metric level of service, which is still reached by wrong data with these townhouses and everything else, but it's inappropriate because the secret form doesn't say, will the level of service change? The secret form says, will the volume of traffic increase? And the answer unequivocally is yes. But on the EAF, they are still answering no. They have not changed their answer. And I ask that you have them change their answer, because otherwise that will just get lost to the process and it will not count as an adverse effect. Quickly moving on to water, and I'll end there. I have foiled for everything I can possibly get my hands on with the DEC. So I have seen a lot of emails and forums and audios and back and forth, and I think there's something a little, maybe, I want to make sure that all of you are aware of something, which is that, and this is kind of also clear in all of their submissions, they do not plan, they do not think they will need to apply for a water withdrawal permit. That's the DEC. And that's the permit that's going to allow us to know whether or not the amount of water they're taking is not just sustainable for them, but is sustainable for everyone else. The stuff with the DOH for a community water system is an entirely different, entirely different considerations. But everyone in this community and all of you are worried about, is there enough water? And the answer is that they're not applying for that water withdrawal permit and they're trying to get around that and they're trying to get you to approve this project without a permit. It's because they don't want to have to monitor everybody else in the community. They've reached out to 3 more people. When you're doing something this big, you have to reach out to far more people. And that's not my opinion, that's the opinion of the DEC for all of the emails I've seen and the things that I've heard, recordings. Now, I live across the street. I have sat in this meeting and said over and over that monitoring wells is critical, and I have volunteered for it. My well is 430 feet deep. I live across the street. No one has once tried to contact me. No one has sent me anything in the mail. And even though my well was identified on maps that I got, not from the submissions, but from the DEC, I was identified and my neighbors were identified and none of us were contacted. Now, they're telling the DEC that they're having a hard time because they're not hearing back from anyone. But someone like me and a lot of my neighbors who are very willing to be involved have not had any outreach. And I think that is a missed opportunity in the most generous sense. The reason that they have to do a massive amount of well monitoring is because we will not know whether or not what they're gonna do is going to affect everybody else unless they do that. And if you approve this project before we have solid answers in hand, there's like no going back. So I am begging you, even for just this one permit with water withdrawal, to again make sure that they have that approved in hand before you approve this project. The other reason is because in their application, they're saying the number is what, is 40, they're going to be water demand, 47,000 gallons. But water demand, that's potable water, right? Drinking water. That amount, that number is very different from how much they will be withdrawing, how much they will be taking from the ground or from other sources. You can use thousands of gallons a day in water treatment. You know, anyone who has a reverse osmosis machine knows what is it, like 5 gallons of wastewater per viable gallon that you get. So the other thing they're not accounting for yet is irrigation. Nothing for water they will use to do landscaping or anything else. And all it says is, well, we're gonna have a wildflower meadows and it'll be self-sustaining, so we don't need to count that, but that's just not true. And none of that has been included in the application. And I realize I'm talking about really specific and technical things, but if you don't do a positive declaration, it will be very hard to catch all of these instances where they are trying to get around having to do the right thing. So I ask you, please pause all this exploratory testing and drilling and until they have done proper outreach to the community. I know that you have been asked to do community outreach. I know that you have asked to put on programming for us where we can have informal conversations so you can actually explain to us what the well drilling is, why you're going so deep, how you're going to test. Because as anyone knows, if you just send random letters in the mail to people, they have no idea what it's about, and it's your responsibility to engage the community. And there are lots of people here who are already willing, and you have not engaged us at all. So I think that needs to be a huge step, because even tonight, I think it was Andy who said, for the DEC, you know, we need to know how much water is going to be produced and if it's enough to run the resort. But that's only one part of the equation. One of the questions in the DEC permit is, will there be enough water for the community today and in the future? And that won't get addressed until a full water withdrawal permit is applied for and assessed. So that's the main stuff. I'm gonna send you my traffic letter because I think there are some issues in there that I hope you can look at to understand why it's been so hard to get real and truthful numbers from them. And I hope that in pointing out these manipulations, that you can understand why it's so important to like call in the troops and get help and do a pause deck and like get all of this online so that not just like so that we can be protected as the community, but also financially. Like, have you guys done anything with bonds for making sure our roads don't crumble? Because they're already bringing heavy machinery up, and if something goes wrong, if that paperwork isn't done, then the taxpayers are paying for it. And so that's why we keep saying declare pause deck immediately, so that we can pause all of their exploratory work and make sure that the town and the community members are financially protected, and that our health is protected, and that our wells are protected. So we can talk all day about pie in the sky fantasies of property values going up. But if my well runs dry, my property, what is my property worth? If any of your homes lose water, what is your property worth? You're gonna truck in water? These things need to be sorted out, and that is all I have. And I just wanna say, I appreciate the work all of you are doing. My eyes are crossed trying to read all of these things all the time, but I am also taking it very seriously. I appreciate that you read the things that I submit, and I know you're doing this. I know that everyone wants to do it in good faith, and that is why I'm asking you to do the right thing and make this positive declaration and help all of us out. Thank you.
Mary?
First, and not part of the time, for the next meeting, I don't think there's at least 100 people here, but library community room, there's air conditioning, and so for the next meeting, you might want to see if you can get there. It's been used for other things like this.
Given the amount of concern there's been with this size, I don't want to move it to a smaller room and somebody tell us we provided an inadequate space in case more people decide to come to the next meeting. I want to make sure we have adequate space for everybody, so I don't want to go to a smaller room.
They do have a 100-person silent department, so just so you know.
Yeah, and then the town hall has 160. Anyway.
So, number one, I'm just wondering.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Now you can. Who is the DEC rep that you are working with now? I know it was Evan Hogan that started to do stuff and started to check up and walk around. And Evan Hogan is in Albany now. He left this part, so I'd like to know who the DEC rep is. I used to be able to get Evan at the drop of a coin, but.
I don't recall his last name offhand, but his first name is Jamie.
Jamie Malika. Jamie Malika, thank you. And I'm wondering how you can be proceeding with any testing or anything without having the permits that you say you need to have. That's a question. The positive declaration, if you don't do a positive declaration, and there is serious, you have a lot of people here with standing, which means that they could be part of a lawsuit. You will be possibly putting yourself up for an Article 78 lawsuit, which you do not want to do. I was involved in an Article 78 lawsuit down in my hometown of Canaan Post against Shell Oil and Gas, and we won. Tiny, 5 of us won against Shell Oil and Gas. You don't want to have an Article 78 lawsuit. When you start with the scoping is things that you can all start thinking about. When you do a positive declaration, then you have scoping hearings, and people go and think about what are up there. Rich, you know the area. You would know what animals or what critters, what plants might be endangered or might be hurt by having something like this. It's just so that you can do it right. Scenic Hudson wrote a letter to you people, and I said I would read a couple of the parts on here. Scenic Hudson is right so that the public can hear it. Scenic Hudson is writing to voice our strong support for issuing a positive declaration of environmental significance for the proposed Blackhead Mountain Lodge. At minimum, the project scale, its potential to attract a large number of visitors, and its location on areas of steep forested slopes within a significant Catskill Park viewshed suggest a high likelihood of potential significant environmental impacts. These impacts would be best assessed through an environmental impact statement, EIS, before proceeding, which would mean a scoping hearing before that. Scenic Hudson is a nonprofit organization. It's very big, very powerful. So for them to have this with Sierra Club has also put it forth, and I think Catskill Mountain Keepers, you really should listen to these people, because if there were any kind of Article 78, I would bet my bottom dollar that they would be involved and sign on as interveners. The project is classified as a Type 1 action pursuant to SEQA, given that it is a non-residential use involving the physical alteration of more than 10 acres. This is a lot more than 10 acres. Because of this classification, the project carries with it the presumption that it's likely to have, again, a significant adverse impact on the environment and may require an EIS. And I'd like to, so I think you get the point. We've heard this from other people too. And it's time. It's time for you guys to make a positive declaration that you need to go on with this. We don't want to be going on with this forever. There's a lot of work in an EIS, and we want to be able to get to it and do it right. And to stop these hearings where a lot of what people are saying here would be part of an EIS. It would be part of a scoping hearing. And you're gonna have to hear it again when you do this. But it's your moral obligation. It really is. And I wanna say something regarding what Frank was saying when he was talking about conflict of interest. I don't think he meant to cast any aspersions on anybody. He wanted you to be aware. The whisper of this can really hurt your reputation with people. Rich, nothing would ever hurt my reputation with you. Nothing would ever hurt my reputation with Ed. Alan, I'm not so sure about, but I just want to say he was trying to make you aware. If there's a whisper that anybody could say that, not that you would do it, you really have to give it due consideration. And I thank you. I'm done.
Mace?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for all your time and patience. I know these meetings get lengthy and some of us tend to talk an awful lot, but I just want to bring to your attention, I think you've all received it by now, a group of concerned citizens submitted a petition to the Town of Cairo Town Board at the Town Board meeting earlier this month, addressing concerns that we all have with safety on our roads. We are requesting a reduction in speed limits. We're asking for specific truck routes. We're asking for weight limits. We're asking that the town pays attention to some very significant existing damage to the roads. I know that a number of the photographs that were submitted to the town have been sent to you folks for you to take a look at. Some of this information points out the traffic report, the comments about the roads, and they've left them out with what KARC has submitted in their information. In fact, they recently submitted 2 photographs of Blackhead Mountain Road that barely showed damage where Blackhead is already collapsing down into the stream on my property. That road is built on laid up dry stack stone, which is already washing out. The town is aware of it. The concern that we all have is with the increased truck traffic in these massive vehicles that are navigating Blackhead Mountain Road, this one particular section of Blackhead is going to collapse. And then Blackhead will be closed for who knows how long for that to be repaired. It'll be an inconvenience to those of us who live there, to say nothing of what it would do to this potential project that will contribute to the cause of the collapse of that road, just by the equipment that's going up and down. So my request, and it's the request of all of us who live in Round Top, is that you people start investigating, putting in place contingencies and bond issues, demanding that that all be put in place by the developers, by the owners of the property, so that the town of Cairo has protections that when that road fails, we're not going to be paying for it. And you can also do that with our drinking water. You can protect our drinking water with the same kind of legally allowed bond issues and contingencies. And these are very, very real concerns for us. And when I hear that there will be 700 cars going by my house on a daily basis, that's pretty unnerving. I live in an 1830s converted barn. It sits 47 inches from the edge of the blacktop. Right now, there's been vehicles going by my house that weigh in excess of 150,000 pounds. Every time they go by, my house shakes. My house gets pelted every winter by the plow trucks when they plow Blackhead Mountain Road. I've had damage. I have cracks in my foundation. I have a cracked sidewalk that the town did when they drove over the bluestone. They didn't have to do it. They could have avoided it, but they went right over it. Never been compensated for it. So I'm not looking forward to what's coming down the pipe with this project. So I ask you people to do whatever you can do to protect all of us, not just the residents of Round Top, but the entire town of Cairo from a very expensive, long drawn out fix of that road when it fails. Thank you.
Connie?
Mine is just short and sweet. I wasn't here the last meeting, but on June 14th, this is the second time I had no water during the day. I'm not home 8 to 10 hours a day, and the brown water I had for 2 days after. I'm finding out through other people just talking where I am, and I understand one was here at the meeting last time. What's gonna happen? That's the biggest thing. We don't need a big thing like that. Tone it down so that you don't just milk out all our water.
Stephen?
Since the beginning of this project, there has been a steady drumbeat of how environmentally careful this project is, and how the PR has been in barbershops and at the fire station and around town that this project is unlike any environmentally sane and safe, unlike any other project, and that's just PR. All we're asking for, and by the way, I know you're sick of hearing every week, every month, but I really very much appreciate you listening to us. What I don't appreciate is that I really haven't gotten one person of the developers and CART to look me in the eye. We're here to talk to you, and so we ask a question and there's like a gaping silence. Anyway, pause deck, pause deck, pause deck. Next meeting, please everyone wear a t-shirt that says positive deck. We would be through with this if we would just do the right thing. When CART comes up and sits here and inundates us with specifics of their plan, it's like a bunch of, for me, it's a bunch of flurry on a screen. There's a bigger issue, and the bigger issue is there needs to be oversight with a positive declaration. Whatever they're telling us, we get lost in the minutia of, sewage going up the hill and coming down the hill, and then, how much is going in how much water is coming out. I mean, that's not really, we're not experts in this, and we need to have oversight. So that's all I want to say about that. I live right up the street from the proposed project at the top of Crow's Nest Road. No one's asked me to come and look at my well. So I'm home every day. So no letter, nobody knocked on the door. So you might not care what a choreographer thinks about this project, but Catskill Mountain Keeper and Scenic Hudson have written very strong letters, and the environmental advocacy that's gathering around this issue is potent. And so this is not just, I don't really want this down at the bottom of my hill. This is like, we have some serious issues by serious people, and I'm sorry that I have to go after Jen, because how can I talk better than that? But, we have some serious support for our opinions, and I think it's time to listen to them. Bond. We do need to have bonds. We can request specific amounts before this project is approved. I'm not, the last meeting, one of the team said, yeah, we'll talk about, taking care of some of the expenses, but that's not a contract. We want like numbers, amounts in bond for well issues, for road issues, for other things that might come up. And then I just have a question: is each unit in the housing development that's coming along with this resort, they each have their own septic tank? Is that correct? Or am I? You know that?
My understanding is the individual homes, if that's what you're talking about, not like they each have their own individual septic tanks that then get pumped to the sewage treatment facility.
Right.
So they don't get pumped continuously because they have to fill and.
So a truck doesn't have to come up for each one and pump it out.
I'm no expert at this, but I would assume, based on my understanding, if there was a system failure, they would then pump those individual tanks, or if the failure was at the actual site, there's a holding tank there and they would just pump that.
Okay, that was just a question, thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
All right.
My name's Art Evans, for those of you that don't know me. I'm the highway superintendent. Those of you that do know me know I normally keep my opinion to myself. I know Alan, worked with him on a couple of his projects. Richie was going to run against me in the first election. Worked with Kevin with the American Legion, putting up banners. Worked with Joe on the fossil. I know pretty much everybody here. I know them to be good, honorable people. And for you to get up here and question their integrity and sully their reputations through insinuation was despicable. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else who didn't sign up that would like to speak? Ray?
Yes, I'd just like to add what Art had said. In a small town like Cairo, anyone that's serving pretty much on any board is going to have friends, family, business associates, and things that they know about the people, or they wouldn't be able to have the town of Cairo have anybody on the committee. But with relation to this board, I've known them most of my life for a long time. I've worked with many of them, and I can tell you what Art said is 100% true as far as honorable people, integrity, and looking out for our best interest as taxpayers.
Doesn't matter.
Since the Petronio brought up a bond. I asked about a completion bond.
Get a mic.
Yeah, get a mic, come on.
Sorry.
Get a mic.
Sorry. Since we were talking about bonds, I had mentioned, there we go. I had mentioned a few meetings ago investigating the completion bond, because if this resort goes bust, we're left with an empty shell like Friar Tuck. The question I have for the planning board is, the 84 residences, are these going to be rented or are they going to be sold? If they're sold, is this a subdivision or is it a resort?
My understanding is there are not 84 residences. The lower portion there, the larger sections, those are the residences, and the upper portion is the hotel.
When you say residences, for staff, or they're going to be sold?
Right, and I may be using the wrong term here, there would be townhouses or condos that the land would not be sold, but the building would be.
Okay, so does that qualify?
No, if the land isn't being sold, it's not a subdivision.
It's not a subdivision. Okay. Now, the important thing I've heard from other people, I have a whole house filter, sediment filter on my well, and I would change it 5-6 months because it got sandy. Is it a coincidence that since this well, these test wells have been drilled, and my well goes down 600 feet, so I'm at the same level, that my filter all of a sudden clogs up in 2 weeks and it's dark brown? And if so, what recourse do I have with the developers, who's ever doing the drilling? 2 weeks, my filter is clogged brown. Maybe it's a coincidence, but I think not.
No.
And I think other people, you had a question about your well running dry.
Oh, I would.
Yeah, and a few other people have said their water is brown now. What recourse do we have?
Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment?
I'll just talk loud. I want to know why a traffic study was done in April when this is a resort area and we have the most traffic Memorial Day through Labor Day.
They adjusted it up by 11% to account for July traffic.
But did they really count the July traffic?
No.
So they're just making up a number.
No, no, no. They did a traffic study, they tracked the number of cars with strips that went by. Were there cars that we kept seeing going back and forth, and have there ever been 50 cars on Crow's Nest Road? No, doesn't matter. It's the evidence, right? Then they took that number and they multiplied it by 11, they added 11%, and they said this, and that's according to standards of like the DOT or whatever thing. There's like ways to do this that are standard. So then we got numbers, and that's where you get 50 cars per day on Crow's Nest Road, something like 190 on Blackhead Mountain, and maybe 90, like it's around there. So when we talk about current levels of traffic, that's what the current level in July would be, or June, was what I think.
Without their building.
What, now,
Yeah.
those are the numbers like now. And then it was not 700 cars a day, it's between 1,200 and 1,500 additional trips, car trips a day. So that's an increase of, they said 7% initially, it's an increase of between 700% and 1,400%.
Right, and then the other thing is, how come every time someone asks a question, the board answers, we don't get anything from these people who are sitting here? How come they don't answer the questions? Why are you speaking for them? They're here to answer the questions.
Yes, absolutely.
The DEC has said that they should answer questions when we ask about wells and water and we want to know what's going on. That's their responsibility to inform us, and they have done nothing. And maybe you could ask them to call an informational meeting outside of this forum where it's just, it's easier, but we're completely in the dark and they could be doing so much more to engage the public and make us feel like they're gonna look into any of this.
Well, I will say it doesn't really engender trust.
Exactly.
They have answered all the questions, they just elected to do it in writing, so it's done.
Joe, my questions have
we're
not
not
been
answering
answered.
in the meeting, you are answering questions for them.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. My name is John First, I'm the attorney for the applicant. We're here to take public comment. You may or may not got answers tonight, but you have had answers to every single public comment via written responses. Yes, you have. We've gone through every single comment and we've responded to those in writing.
That's a lie! Not true.
Well,
They chunk them together into vague categories. I have asked
take the
dozens
time to
of
read them, but we have responded to comments.
How dare you
The
suggest
idea
that?
here is for the board members.
The audience or the board?
The board. The board is the one that's making the determination, so the comments should be addressed to the board. Our responses are sent to the board, and it's up to the board to digest the information. They take your comments, they take our comments, they take their planning board consultants' comments, and they make their determination. That's how the process goes. It's not a back and forth. It's not a situation where we're answering their questions tonight.
And that's
It's
why
not
we
a
deposit
situation where
secrets
members
so
of the
that they
public
have to.
answer questions from other members of the public. That's not usually how a meeting is run. Comments are given to the board members, the applicant responds to those comments in writing, and you have additional comments. That's a normal process.
Correct me if my numbers were
You're not
wrong.
talking to them, you're supposed to be talking to the client. How come you're talking for the board? That's what it sounds like you're doing. You're telling us how it should be run? They're the ones who are supposed to be doing that. Instead, you're an attorney, and you're coming in here and telling us how it should be run?
Because a member of the
that?
public should not be answering on how a traffic study was done.
Why?
Because that
I
is the
have asked
process.
about methodology for 3 months. I have asked about methodology for 3 months on the record in written comments. No one has ever responded to those comments.
They're in the record,
They are
they're
not.
in the link.
They are
I've
not.
responded to
They are
every
not.
single comment. I know you don't like the answers.
They are
But
not.
they are
You're not answering, you're lying.
The board can tell us.
You can laugh like that, but you're lying.
Try to do this one person at a time so we can have a civil conversation and understand each other.
Well, this is a
This is a lie.
really good slice of life of what this organization is gonna be in this community.
Tell us to shut up and just deal with it.
I didn't say that. I asked for one person to speak at a time, so we're not speaking over each other and we're respecting each other as fellow citizens.
May I?
CJ.
Yeah, I'd like to, you have to turn it off.
I just want to go back and mention something, or go back to something in terms of any disrespect that may be coming your way on the planning board. I don't think that's what's going on. I think that there's a level of responsibility you have in a position of power, and you are all in a position of power. It doesn't matter what you get paid. What we don't have and we are feeling is there a level of aloofness from you, that we're not getting answers that we need. And yes, Jen is doing an insane amount of work, and doing a lot of work for you, it seems like, and you're completely lying in our faces. You need to declare a positive secret. This is enough. We're tired. And I don't think Frank is trying to be a dick to people. I think he's just saying that if there is a genuine problem, then you need to step down. And that is not to be disrespectful to people. It's just about somebody having a role that has power in it. And if it's a conflict of interest, you need to remove yourself from that power, just like Frank mentioned you did. Thank you.
Public hearing will remain open until the next month.
I got accused of something. Can I respond to it?
Yes.
Please let her
If
respond.
any of you want to believe this attorney, I implore you, look not at their public comment questions in which they group together various people, they put them into vague summaries, and they answer them all at once. If you look at the actual transcript of the meetings and you look at the questions that I've submitted to you, I have been asking questions that have never been answered. For the past 4 months, I've asked about where I have asked for specific studies cited that are not included. I've asked for more transparency into their methodology. I've asked, what data are you plugging into this model? These are specific, concrete questions I've asked that would illuminate answers. Instead, I have to come here month after month and repeat the same stuff because they are being evasive. And for somebody to come up here, an attorney, and lie in a bald-faced way is appalling. And I would love to not have to be the person digesting all of these reports and running these numbers and operating with a degree of research and integrity, but they are not doing it. And I can't stand to watch that kind of obfuscation occur. And none of you, just like none of us, have the technical expertise to be able to manage all of that. And that's why people who are professionals are supposed to do that for you. But there's no oversight and no enforcement, and they're pulling wool over your eyes, and they are not responding to our questions.
Well, they think we're all stupid.
So I ask you, if you think that attorney is correct, as the planning board, you don't have to believe him. He represents the developers. Please look at the questions I have asked, look at the transcripts, look at my letters, and then tell me if they have answered my questions. That's up for you to decide, but don't listen to the attorney.
As I mentioned, the public hearing will resume next month. Can I get a motion to end the meeting? Second? All for?
How dare him question you questioning the process?